I'm with Anne Jones, a dance teacher from Llanelli, one of the longest-serving professional dance teachers in Wales, actually. Anne, welcome along. Nice to have you.
Thank you very much.
Just give us a little potted history. I mean, most children, I guess, boys and girls these days, they like to dance, they like music. When did you start shaking it about and dancing?
Well, my earliest recollection of dancing was when I was 3 years of age. We lived in Llanelli.
Right.
I was born. We lived in Farmers Row, and my parents had the row that was there. You had the Royal Oak one end, some small cottages, and then our shop, which is the same size as the Royal Oak, was the other side. We lived there,
right.
Bridge House. And this particular day, suddenly my father turned up. I had disappeared from the house. It was on a lunchtime, and some men had put me up on the bar in the Royal Oak, and I was dancing on the bar.
All right.
So that was my earliest recollection of actually dancing. Then when I was 8, it was decided that I should try ballet. And I went to Miss Hilary Fry in Llanelli, who told my parents within a couple of weeks that I had an innate talent for ballet.
Mm.
And I was in a class of sort of 8 to 12-year-olds. But she said there was a problem. I was going to be too tall.
Oh, right.
Because I was head and shoulders above the others. And, of course, you can't be too tall for ballet. It's a misconception. People think that you have to be quite tall, but you don't actually.
Mm.
And so my parents told me, and I spoke to Miss Fry, and I was 8, and I said, look, I don't want to continue with this because I don't want to get so involved that I would be hugely disappointed if I couldn't go further with it. So I decided to opt out then. And then when I was 14, I decided I'd go for ballroom dancing. And that's what I did. I started with Josephine Silver, she was then.
Yeah.
I eventually became Josephine Pollard, and she married Ken Pollard.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I studied, but I as an amateur, I danced there.
We'll stop you there because you're going to go through your career and we won't have any questions left. You'd have answered them all. We'll just take it one step at a time.
Right.
So that's pretty much your school. Where did you go to school?
The school I went to after leaving Wellingborough, and when we came to Buryport, I went to the junior school. And then from there, I went to Greg's High School in Swansea.
Oh, okay. And your family life, what did your parents do?
Well, years ago, they had some businesses. And then after that, my father was a regional manager for a national company. My mother was in nursing. She'd been in nursing all her life.
Okay. And did you sort of live in Wellingborough for most of the time, or around Llanelli then? You never moved away as such to live?
I left Wellingborough when I was 5. We left Wellingborough when I was 5.
Okay.
And we moved to Buryport, and we've been here ever since.
So you've been in Buryport ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And, at that time, was dancing, I mean, we know now how popular dancing is with the shows that are on TV and so on. But I remember sort of as a child watching Terry Wogan introduce Come Dancing with rather elderly looking people, in ballroom dresses and men in tuxedos going around the floor. What was it like then? Was it fashionable?
Well, I mean, ballroom dancing has always been, it always will be fashionable. I mean, you have this Strictly Come Dancing at the moment, which is, realistically, it was an offshoot from Come Dancing.
Yeah.
Although I don't think that's going to last as long as Come Dancing did, because that lasted for over 60 years.
Right.
I don't think it's going to last that long, but nevertheless, it's on similar lines. But dancing will always be popular because, to be quite honest with you, let's put it this way, it's the only way in which, let's talk about male, female. If a man approached a woman on the street and put his arms around her, she'd call the police. Mm-hmm. But when you ask a woman to dance, it's quite acceptable. And even today, people do meet and so on when they do dance in partnership together. So it always will be very popular. I mean, my interest was not particularly in ballroom dancing, although I qualified in Latin. My main interest has always been freestyle.
Llanelli was a place that had a lot of nightclubs, and when you went there, I couldn't say that I saw many people ballroom dancing. I saw a lot of people shaking their bottoms around and gyrating around.
Dance is dance, whatever it is. It's an expression to music, whether
Yeah.
you dance solo or you dance in couples or whatever. And there are all forms of dance. I mean, obviously ballroom dancing, it's about the second most popular so-called hobby in this country next to fishing.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. There are a huge number of people, even if they don't go to a school to learn how to dance, they sort of tend to pick it up socially. And an awful lot of people will still dance. I mean, they always will.
I
It's never
remember
going to change.
I remember going to the nightclubs, and I used to have a lot of male friends I'd go with, and most of the night I'd be dancing with my male friends, which at that time didn't seem to be that acceptable. You know, it was frowned upon. People would cast a look, and rumours and whispers would go around. Why is he dancing with that man? Why is he dancing with that boy? You know. That's changed, hasn't it? I mean, we've seen now, you know, it's no longer sort of gay bars or clubs or anywhere where men can dance with men. It's gradually becoming sort of mainstream, as we've seen on the dance programs with, you know, all male couples, all female couples.
Well, as far as this is concerned, if you go back a very long time, certainly to the 1920s, I would say, when social type dancing became hugely popular with the Charleston and so on and so forth. It developed from there. But if you go back to that time, and even today you'll see this, you have maybe an annual dinner dance or whatever with a company. And you get couples, obviously, who sit at tables and so on. And even today, it's surprising how many women will get up and dance together, a ballroom dance, and the men won't because they either can't or they don't want to.
Yeah.
So it's always been acceptable to see two ladies dancing together.
Yeah.
Nobody ever batters an eye, is it? Of course, seeing two men dance together is certainly it's newer.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question about it. But I mean, seeing two women have always been acceptable dancing together. But I think it's going to take quite a bit for most of the world to come to terms with two men dancing together.
Yeah. We see, you know, dance having progressed from what you'd call classical dance and ballroom and so on to what we have now, really. I mean, there's so many genres of dance, you know, that's coming through. Do you like what you see, or do you are you still entrenched in that sort of look, I like the classic and that's me?
No, I mean, all forms of dance interest me. I mean, in my career, I've covered all types of thing. I mean, I introduced line dancing to Wales, the country western line dancing some years ago. I introduced that to Wales. And as I say, I've done a lot of teacher training. I did an awful lot of that. I've trained and had qualified over 47 teachers in my career. But I've done all kinds of things. I have had a very eclectic career, whether it's teaching Roy Noble to dance for a television program over 8 weeks, and then him taking a medal test at the end of it, or whether it's training people to walk in American fashion shows on the catwalk, training people for mime as part of their entrance examination for RADA, training majorettes to have terrific routines, training gymnasts to have their floor routines. I've done all kinds of things. Bodybuilder is another thing that I've trained.
Yeah. Is it, you know, I mean, most people associate dancing, especially today and in my era, definitely, that it's kind of has some undertones of sexuality, undertones of, you know, that kind of attraction. Are we going too far that way, or have we lost it? Or
well,
you know, where do you see
ask
that?
If we're going too far that way, I shall tell you now that, probably 80 or 90 years ago, one of the foremost ladies in this country who actually, she devised the slow foxtrot. She taught the royal family to dance and so on. She was a lady who trained me, as it happens. She died some years ago. And her philosophy was this, and I mean, you talk about modern times. She used to say that as far as dancing in couples, well, not only in couples, even as solo dancing is concerned, that dance is the vertical expression of a horizontal desire.
That's good. I like that.
And that's always been known. I mean, it's...
So is it kind of ritualistic then? It's a sort of a mating call almost, isn't it?
It comes down to all kinds of things. I mean, as far as man is concerned, the human, which is, he's not that old, obviously, he's only about 750,000 years old. But as far as man is concerned, going back to when he first sort of evolved, I suppose, and he didn't speak, he grunted, which is true.
It's about 10 years ago in Llanelli, yeah.
yeah. And they would communicate through movement, almost like sign language.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they had their gods and their superstitions, and they started to do. I suppose that's what the dances that they had, and it's the same in a lot of African tribes and is now. The dances that they have, the ritual dances that they have, the Maasai and so on, they still have these things going on. They actually, I suppose, if you think of it, they would be the equivalent of Christians saying prayers in church.
Yeah,
because that is how they communicated. And a dance has always been, as you say, then you get fertility dances.
Yeah, and
all kinds of things.
It actually then, when it reaches the masses, when it captures the attention of the masses, I'm thinking of the Ketchup and Macarena and the boat song, or Bucks Fizz.
You get things like that. I mean, you get what teachers actually call the nonsense stuff. They are literally a one dance wonder.
Yeah.
They might be around for a few weeks, might even be for a few months.
They're good, though.
They're the type of thing that people tend then in years to come to look back at and say, oh, God, do you remember that night when I was absolutely off my head and we were sitting on the floor doing that damn thing?
Yeah.
I hope to God nobody ever sees that, because if they saw that tape, I would never be able to hold my head up again.
You wouldn't want to see...
And a lot of people say this kind of thing.
You wouldn't want to see...
So you do have the one-hit wonders. You'll always get those.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to see...
It's like line dancing. Line dancing was hugely popular. And although it does still go on, but it's more of a select group of people now, the ones who really are into it. But when, some years ago, you'd have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in classes, maybe for a year, 2 years, and then, of course, they'd peter out. So you do get fashions in dance, but then you have your staples, which will never go away. And that is where ballroom and Latin come in, because they will never go away.
Yeah.
They'll always be around, The same as disco or freestyle dancing. It's a type of freestyle, at any rate. I mean, that again will always be around. And I mean, that only came into being, not because it was fashionable, but because greedy nightclub owners and dance hall owners in the late 50s going into 60s decided that instead of having a huge dance floor with tables and chairs around, if they could make the dance floor much smaller, they could get 3 times the number of people coming in to the door. And so, of course, they had a tiny space where you couldn't dance in partnership unless it was a sort of a quick grope and a snog. You couldn't dance with anybody, really. You could only dance solo on the spot. And that is really how disco dancing, it was out of necessity. There was no room for anything else. Yeah. But that'll always be that'll always be in vogue. And you'll still, I'm sure in 10, 20 years' time, you'll still see a group of women on a Saturday night or a Friday night dancing around their handbags.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the birdie dance to come back. That's what I'm waiting for.
Oh, yes. Tweet, tweet.
Just fast forward to today, really, and you're about to start up again. Do you mind sort of divulging roughly what age you are now?
I'll be 71 in April.
So you're 71 in April, and you've decided to start dancer-sized classes, an East Coast swing at the Sandy Road Community Centre. Why at 71? I mean, some people would say, look, you should be...
in the first place, let's get this straight. There is no such thing as age, and I really mean this. People who talk about age, they are the old-fashioned ones, because there is no such thing as age. People are who they are. They're as fit as they are, they're as healthy as they are, and they do as they please. And that is always, always in my philosophy. And anybody that knows me, and there are thousands I've trained, will tell you this. It means nothing to me whatsoever. I do as much now as I did 50 years ago. There's no difference whatsoever.
Has it helped you keep fit with your health and so on?
Well, again, this is a question I get asked quite frequently. People say, well, you're probably so fit because you've danced for so many years. And my answer is, perhaps I've danced for so many years because I'm fit.
Yeah.
You can look at it both ways.
Yeah.
You can look at it both ways. So, dancing can keep people fit.
Yeah.
When you take it to the level that I took it to, it can cause problems. A lot of teachers end up by having knee replacements and hip replacements much earlier than they maybe would have ever had to have had because of the wear and tear on the joint. Because a person might dance for 2 or 3 hours a week if they go to different classes or whatever they do. A dance teacher can dance for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah. Some people.
So when you go to that level, it's a different thing.
Yeah. Some people, I guess, are a bit more conscious about their appearance and their weight and so on, and maybe not, convinced that they should dance or not encouraged to dance. I'm thinking of a piece I saw recently on a 10-year-old, 11-year-old girl in New York who was a very large girl, but she'd had health problems and that she couldn't help, control her weight. And she was told by consecutive people, made fun of and bullied that she couldn't dance. But wow, when you see her move, and you see her leaping into the air and all the kind of things.
That.
Did you see that? It was incredible, wasn't it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing. People again always assume that if somebody is big, that they're not going to be any use as a dancer. If somebody is stick thin, that they're going to be perfect, and it doesn't work out that way at all. We have an innate rhythm for one thing. It also depends on your own personal metabolism. It depends on your. People say they don't have rhythm. Everybody's got rhythm because if we didn't have rhythm, we'd be dead.
Right.
Our life is based on rhythm. If you walk out of sync, you fall flat in your face. You lose your equilibrium. If your heart is not acting as it should, you drop dead because the rhythm is not there. So everybody has a rhythm, whether they want to believe it or not. Everybody has a rhythm. And it's a case of, expressing yourself to music. I really can't imagine anybody not wanting, even if they're on their own at home, wanting to express themselves to a piece of music that they hear.
So tell us a bit about this dance class that you're starting up in the Sandy Road.
Well,
Centre.
Dancercise is something which I created in 1976. And the name has now actually been taken by an awful lot of people, including a lot of celebrities who've had sort of videos and things out calling it that. Which was really a bit naughty of them because up until about 10 years ago, the name Dancercise was registered to me. Right. I held all the rights to it because I did. And then my parents were very ill and so on, and I wasn't teaching. I was teaching more or less part-time, and I thought, sod this, I've got other things going on. I can't be bothered with it. And so I left it go. I didn't bother to continue with it. I did for years. But I devised Dancercise, as I say, in 75, 76. And that is something which, it is what it says. It's exercise through dance, or whichever way you want to put it. There's no finer way for anybody to stay fit than through dancing. You use every muscle in your body. It helps with your breathing. One of the things that happened to me in my career, and this has gone on always, I get doctors who send patients to me because a lot of doctors used to be my patients and my pupils and so on. It's up until 3:30 this morning. I'm exhausted at the moment. A lot of doctors used to send people to me who had hip trouble, who'd possibly had heart trouble, asthmatics, and all this type of thing, because they knew that I knew how to treat them. What people don't realize is that you have people who decide, I'm going to teach someone to dance, which is the most appalling thing they can do. You wouldn't go to a mechanic and say, will you fill my tooth? You'd go to a dentist. And people who do teach, unfortunately, there are many around who've never been trained. They're not qualified. They don't know what they're doing. And when you are trained, amongst all the subjects which have to be covered in order to gain an associate, and then, of course, you'll go on to get your licentiate and your fellowship eventually if you want to, are anatomy and physiology, diet, fitness in general, aerobic and anaerobic exercises. It's a huge thing. You have to know exactly what you're doing when you teach somebody to take a plie before they can take a stag leap. And if you don't, you can end up by dislocating their knee. So you have to know what you're doing. It's not a case of, I think I'll just start teaching people to dance. You can't do that. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to know you're taking somebody's body into your hands, and you have a teacher has got the ability or lack of ability to actually damage them. So, you really have to know what you're doing. And anybody who does want to dance, my advice to anybody is make damn sure that the person that you're going to is qualified to teach. Because if they're not, it might conceivably cause problems and cause some injuries, which is just no good.
There we are.
So, but as I say, it does keep you very, very fit.
Okay, on that note then, we will say to people, if they want to come along, it starts on Wednesday, 16th of March.
And by the way, don't forget the East Coast Shuffle is a fantastic thing.
Yeah, so 16th of March, Wednesday, 16th of March, 7 o'clock is the dancercise till 8, and then a short break, and then the East Coast swing.
10 past 8 to 10 past 9.
Yeah, that follows then. Well, Anne, it's been great speaking to you, and I'm finding out a bit about your career in dance, and very interesting, very colourful. I've seen the photographs as well. We'll be sharing them with the article. But many thanks for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.